Namaste, everyone. On behalf of Team Yes, I wish everyone a happy and joyous new year ahead. Welcome to today's Yes Talk titled Sri Aurobindo Has What the Youth Needs. The speaker, Dr. Ramesh Bijlani, is a prolific writer, an inspirational speaker, and a spiritual seeker residing at Sri Aurobindo Ashram, Delhi branch. He loves to use the gift of communication that he has received from the divine for dispensing small doses of love and wisdom from the inexhaustible pharmacy of Sri Aurobindo and the Mother. Dr. Bijlani, thank you so much for sparing your valuable time for all of us. Look forward to a lovely session with you. Over to you, sir, please.
Thank you, Arunima. It seems no young people are interested in listening to what I have to say, but hopefully some will join later and till
Yes.
later when you upload the recording, they'll watch that.
Yes, of course.
The reason why today this topic has been chosen, the topic that is Sri Aurobindo has, what the youth needs, you can guess is because we are very near the Youth Day of India, which is on the 12th of January. This also happens to be this day, 12th of January, also happens to be Swami Vivekananda's birthday, and that is the reason why it has been selected as the Youth Day in India. Swami Vivekananda, in a way, was a pioneer. You can say in the field of spirituality, uh, equivalent to an Olympic uh, gold medal winner, the first gold medal winner in the field of spirituality. Because it was he, after his address at the Parliament of Religions in Chicago in 1893, it was he who changed the very image of India in the West, made a radical change. But before then, barring a few scholars, the usual image that India had was that of a country which had some primitive religious practices, which did not make much sense and which did not have much relevance to today's world. It was he who brought out the greatness of the Vedantic tradition and how it is something that is of universal value. And further, he was the one who also pointed out to the importance of youth, the youth participating in the process of nation building, because he could see that our country had a glorious past, but was miserable in the present. I mean, the then present when he was around. So, seeing this contrast between our past glory and present misery, he could see that it was the youth that could make a difference and create a better country. And he said that just give me 1,000 men. Of course, that included women. Those days, when we said men, it included women. Means give me 1,000 people, 1,000 persons, and I can change the country. But then he's also added 1,000 real men, not brutes or uncivilized people. Real men with manly qualities. So that's the National Youth Day. And now a bit about Sri Aurobindo. Why was Sri Aurobindo the way he was? And of course, we'll talk about why he's relevant to the youth. And that's what the talk is about. But then, how did he happen to be as he was? If we look at his surface life, we find that that was because of the uh, way his life got organized. Uh, Initially, because of his father's wishes, and later on, he took over and started guiding his life as and when he felt appropriate. His father was a medical doctor, and like most of the educated people those days, and to some extent even today, he believed that the Indian civilization was now obsolete, and therefore, if the country had to progress and keep pace with the world, we had to copy the ways of the Western world. And in order to shield his children from influences Indian, he made sure that they had minimum contact with Indians. And it was in that process that Sri Aurobindo was in England with two of his elder brothers for further studies when Sri Aurobindo was just 7 years old. So at the age of 7, he was sent there, stayed there for 14 years, and came back as a young man of 21. But then, although his father would have liked that he come and join the Indian uh, civil service, you know, that's what it was. The Indian Administrative Service, or IAS, was called those days. He would have wanted him to join the ICS, and that's why he sent him to England. But then Sri Aurobindo came back with the firm resolve that he will not serve the government that had enslaved his country, and that instead he would work for the freedom of the country. And although his father wanted to shield him from all influences Indian, he went on to become one of the powerful exponents of the Indian culture. So that is the paradox of life. But then his father also had a role to play in shaping him up and in making him what he turned out to be. Because when he came back, he, being a very intelligent person, he had not only looked at the Western culture, but also looked at it with a critical eye. He had not just absorbed something from it like a sponge, he had come to study it in depth and seen it with a critical eye. To start with, after coming to India, he went and joined as a teacher in a college run by the Maharaja of Baroda. And apart from teaching there, what he did was to go into the ancient Indian scriptures in their original. And the result was that 14 years in England and almost 14 years in Baroda made him perfect synthesis of the East and the West. On top of that, he had a very sharp intellect and phenomenal spiritual capacity, the evidence of which he gave at many stages. But one of the most prominent ones was towards the end of his stay in Baroda when he went into a samadhi within 3 days, which most people don't attain even in a lifetime. So, this type of a combination, a perfect east west synthesis, uh, an exemplary intellect, phenomenal spiritual capacity, is something which is totally unprecedented in human history, this type of a combination, and unlikely to be repeated in the near future. And that is what made him what he was. Of course, when he left Baroda, it was because now he wanted to join the freedom struggle full time, in which he stayed for about 5 years. But then after that, in 1910, he finally knew what his final calling was, and that could be fulfilled only if he left the part of the country which was ruled by the British and went to Pondicherry. This is something which he received from an inner command, and one can understand why it was, because Pondicherry was a French colony, and therefore in the British could not pursue him as easily there as they would have if he had continued to stay in India. Although he decided to quit the freedom struggle, the British would have always remained suspicious, and his spies would not have let him stay in peace while he was in India. So, in relative peace, he could be in Pondicherry, where he was physically there for 40 years. And it is there that he transformed from a freedom fighter into a spiritual master. So that is briefly what Sri Aurobindo's life sketch is, and that's what made him what he was. Now, with that introduction, let me turn to the PowerPoint to elaborate more on today's topic itself. So, this is the topic Sri Aurobindo has what the youth needs. Before going to what the youth needs, let's see what is it that the youth does not need, because that can be a mirror image of what the youth needs and whether Sri Aurobindo has it. The youth does not want to negate worldly life. They're not prepared to go to the Himalayas or to a cave in pursuit of spirituality, although they feel that that is the only way to lead a spiritual life. Why they feel so is because of the conditioning, and that is the result of how India has been for the last 1,000 years or so. During the 1,000 years or so, an idea that has taken deep roots in our psyche in this country is that there's a dichotomy between worldly life and spiritual life. Spiritual life is for a select few who go away to a forest or the Himalayas or to a cave, whereas for the rest of us, whether we like it or not, because of various obligations and compulsions, it is only worldly life in which there is no room for spirituality. And if at all we'll be able to turn somewhat towards spirituality, it will be in old age when all the worldly responsibilities have been taken care of. Now, this is a life negating view of spirituality. But it was not always so in India. In the Vedic times, spirituality permeated every aspect of life, and that was not at the expense of material progress. In fact, it facilitated material progress. Because till about 1,000 years ago, India was second to none, whether it was in the field of literature or art or architecture or science and technology and even prosperity. We were the most prosperous nation and were at the peak in terms of other uh, things, which we think about when we think of a developed country like science and technology, art, architecture, and so on, music, dance. In all these areas, we were second to none till about 1,000 years ago. And this was in spite of the fact that spirituality permeated every aspect of life. So there's no incompatibility between worldly life and spiritual life. In fact, spirituality, if it enters worldly life, enhances worldly life, ennobles it, enriches it, and makes it of some real value and makes it suitable for everyone, not for just those who renounce the world and go away to the Himalayas. So, Sri Aurobindo, as I said, Swami Vivekananda also talked about that, bringing spirituality into worldly life. And after about more than 100 years, we can say they were more or less contemporaries. So whether it was Swami Vivekananda or Sri Aurobindo or Mahatma Gandhi, we had the good fortune of having all these great persons more or less at the same time. And one thing which they all emphasized was that spirituality is not just for a select few who renounce the world, but it is for everyone and it should enter our worldly life. So each of them in their own way did that. Sri Aurobindo accepts and embraces life, spirituality that enters every aspect of life. And that is the type of spirituality that he talked about. And that is what the young people want. Young people do not want to negate life, they don't want to reject life. They want to live their life to the fullest. And that is possible. And whether it is possible in today's world is something that Sri Aurobindo and the mother demonstrated in the ashram that they established in Pondicherry. So the Pondicherry ashram was a sort of a laboratory to see whether uh, what existed in the Vedic times, that is, spirituality permeating every aspect of life, is it possible in today's world? How it can be adapted to today's world? What type of form it can take in the modern times? Now, that was the type of experiment going on there. And not only was spirituality introduced into every activity that went on in the ashram, which was essential, but particularly it was also applied to a school for the children. And that school still is going strong. And that is perhaps one of the very few, if at all there are any other institutions, it would be one of the very few in the world where a child could start at the nursery stage and go on up to the stage of graduation. And so whether it's education or healthcare or any other activity, spirituality can be brought into it. In fact, spirituality enters every aspect of life, and when it enters it, it makes it more meaningful. Not just education and healthcare, but in fact, a householder's life. Even simple things like going out for shopping, these are all place for spirituality. In fact, everything that we do in life, from morning till night, whether it's eating or sleeping, everything has place for spirituality. So spirituality can permeate every aspect of life. So Sri Aurobindo did not talk of the version of spirituality that requires life negation, which is for a select few, and certainly life negation is something that the youth does not need. Another thing that sometimes the youth fears is that spirituality may require us to kill our emotions. They have strong emotions, particularly when it comes to things like liking good food or being interested in sex, and so on and so forth. These are the two most basic emotions. And what Sri Aurobindo and the mother have emphasized is that we should not kill emotions, not only because it's extremely difficult, not only because the emotions associated with food and sex are what ensures that the individual will survive and the species will survive. In human beings, in fact, emotions assume an extra function. Preserving the individual and preserving the species is something that the emotions do also in animals. But in human beings, the emotions acquire an additional function. It is emotions that make us do great things. Nothing great and worthwhile happens in the human world without emotions, because it's only when a person is passionate about something, wants to do it very badly, that he is willing to go through all the difficulties and hardships and overcome all the obstacles and hurdles that is necessary for achieving anything great and worthwhile. So, emotions should not be killed, but in order that emotions become collaborators in doing great things, we need to educate the emotions, purify the emotions, and transform emotions, not reject them. So emotions don't have to be killed. Unlike some other religious and spiritual traditions, which would have it that emotions should be killed because they only lead us astray. Emotions don't just lead us astray, although they can, but emotions are also very important for doing anything great and worthwhile. Then the youth does not want to kill desires. They might have heard several times desires are the basic source of misery in the world. Not only unfulfilled desires, even fulfilled desires can be a source of misery, and so on and so forth. But they say still, well, we want to experience. Let us fulfill a few desires at least. We just can't help it. Now, what is important is to, in fact, fulfill a few desires and let your own experience verify that the fulfillment of the desires did not bring the promised happiness, how it can lead to misery. And when your own experience has verified it, then this knowledge is internalized. Then you actually start believing. And but that still doesn't mean that you overcome all desires. But what happens is then the desires come with in a sense of proportion, with a sense of proportion. And if the desire is fulfilled, you know that it will not guarantee lasting happiness. If the desire is unfulfilled, you're not very sorry about it, and you can overcome it easily and forget about it and move on in life. So it's not about killing desires, but about once again putting desires in the right perspective. And that is what the ancient Indian culture was all about. When we talk about Kama, Artha, Dharma, and Moksha, the four pillars of life in ancient India, we find that basically, I mean, the language might look a little alien to us. That division of these four pillars still applies to any worldly life. And the first one in that is Kama, that is desires. So desires were considered legitimate, as was Artha, that is the means to satisfy those desires, that is money and other resources that we need. But then all this had to be done within the framework of Dharma, that is sense of right and wrong. And why? Because the ultimate aim was moksha or liberation, liberation from desires, liberation from our dependence on any external circumstances for our happiness. So that was the type of liberation that was aimed at, not liberation that we will get in some other imaginary world after we are dead and gone. Liberation is possible right here. And what is liberation? That liberation is from the tyranny of desires, from the tyranny of external circumstances on which we very often become dependent for our happiness. So one doesn't have to kill desires if we look at spirituality the way Sri Aurobindo and the mother have presented to us. Then the same size fits all approach. The youth don't want that there should be a prescribed path which has to be followed in meticulous detail by everybody. Sri Aurobindo's teachings give us maximum freedom in carving out our own path. In fact, so much freedom that sometimes it's difficult to make use of that much freedom. So, depending upon your inclinations and temperament and circumstances, you can carve out your own path and fit spirituality, bring spirituality into everything you do while following that path in life. Then, what the youth does not like is that they should be told that you should do this because of antiquity. It has been done for hundreds of years or thousands of years, and therefore you should do it. You should do it. And what is it that has been done for hundreds and thousands of years? Are the conventions which have got fossilized into something which we do not question. They may not have any relevance. They may not make sense, but because it has been done for so long, that you should do it. In fact, authority of any type, whether it is that of a book or whether it is that of a teacher of the ancient past, or whether it is just conventions which have got established, authority of any type is something which the youth does not like. And there is no such emphasis in Sri Aurobindo's teachings. In fact, there's freedom to question everything and make your own choices. Then rituals and ceremonies. That is again something which the youth naturally does not like, especially when they are completely meaningless, they do not make sense. So while some rituals and ceremonies may be permissible, but nothing is compulsory, nothing is obligatory. Then the youth does not like any type of fanaticism, be it religious fanaticism, or you might say fanaticism related to patriotism, which we call parochialism. Sri Aurobindo was a spiritual teacher. He was not a religious teacher. He was someone who was not, he was founded in tradition, but not restricted to tradition. And he was a nationalist, a patriot, but his patriotism and nationalism did not exclude internationalism. They can be, they can coexist. So he was neither parochial in any sense, not just a nationalist and rejecting internationalism, and he was not a fanatic, be it religious or in any other sense. And another thing which the youth are afraid of when it comes to spirituality is that they feel that if they might join a cult, or it might be considered they have joined a cult, or they might be persuaded to join a cult wherever they start going for spiritual uh, functions or spiritual teachings and so on and so forth. And sometimes they would feel that they might get trapped by initiation, some formal ceremony in which they would be initiated into that tradition, and then they would start feeling, because of this, you know, inherent nature to have superstitions of that type, that now that I have been initiated into this tradition, if I get out of it, uh, then maybe something sinister will happen. One feels guilty, and one also fears that something terrible might happen now if I change my guru or change the tradition. So I've been trapped in this tradition because I've been initiated into it. No, none of these things happens here, because in Sri Aurobindo's tradition, there is no formal initiation. There's no formal initiation, there's no cult. Sri Aurobindo did not want to establish a new religion because he said that then this will go the same way as all other religions have gone, get organized, and rituals and ceremonies and external outer form will take over. So he neither established a religion nor a cult, nor did he look at religions entirely favorably. Of course, he said the overall influence of religions in the world has been positive. But then the world is moving in a direction where all religions will be replaced by spirituality, in which you are basically going into the foundations of religions. All religions are founded on a spiritual philosophy. So you are going to the foundations and rejecting all the external forms, which is where the rituals and ceremonies and all these things come in. So he neither wanted to establish a new religion because he said that will go the same way as other religions have gone, where outer form will take over, nor did he want to establish a cult, and nor was any formal initiation made a part of the process of becoming his disciple. Now let's come to the positive part. What is it that the youth needs? They want to engage with life. They want to live life to the fullest. And that is what Sri Aurobindo's teachings are about. Life affirmation, bringing spirituality into everyday life, all aspects of life. Then, the youth doesn't want authority and convention. They want rationality. They want spirituality to be approached with reason. And that is what you find in Sri Aurobindo's teachings. In fact, you're the past master at the reasoning skills. One of his masterpieces is the Life Divine. Apart from whatever else Life Divine teaches, it also teaches us how to think rationally. It's only you read that book that you realize that we may place reason on the highest pedestal and claim to be rational, but how irrational we so often are. And one of the examples would be the way many rational young people, and even not so young people, reject spirituality because they have some prejudice against it. They hardly know anything about spirituality and yet they reject it. Now, how far is it rational to reject something without even knowing what you are rejecting? And still we call ourselves rational. We assume spirituality is irrational without knowing what spirituality is, and then we reject it because we feel that we are rational. So that is the type of circular argument we go through and reject something which we know nothing about. Now, how rational is that? Sri Aurobindo said that if you accept something, it should be because you understand it. If you reject something, that should also be because you understand it. If you don't understand it, before rejecting it, at least keep your mind open to it till you understand what you are rejecting, what you are on the verge of rejecting. So don't reject it before you understand what it is. Then the youth does not want, philosophy in which you are just in the clouds, all the time, going through meaningless cerebral exercise, mental gymnastics, things which are only of academic value. That's not what the youth wants. They want something which is practical, something can be brought into life. And that is what Sri Aurobindo's teachings are about, bringing spirituality into real life, the practical aspects of spirituality. Then the youth want freedom, freedom to carve out their own path, and a path which is not rigid but flexible. And that is what you find here. In fact, so much freedom is there to carve out your own path that very often those who take to the path find it difficult to make use of that freedom. Till then, broad guidelines are available, some hints and suggestions are available. The basic aids which one can use on the path are available, but the details of the path are always left to the seeker. Then the youth wants guidance on career choice. Now, how is it that we can choose our career in such a way that we enjoy it, we like our work? And what is heartening is that more and more young people are moving in a direction where, when they are making the choice regarding their careers, they also want combine it with a meaningful life. And that is the type of guidance that you find in Sri Aurobindo's teachings. How you can choose a career in which you are doing something that you really enjoy doing, something that you are made for, something that is in keeping with your swabhava and swadharma. Swabhava, is our, basically how we are constituted. That is our basic strengths and weaknesses and inclinations and temperament. That is our swabhava, how we are constituted. And swadharma is uh, what we should be doing in view of our circumstances. And in a way, swadharma is dictated not only by the circumstances, but whatever the swabhava is. So, in that sense, swadharma includes the swabhava. And combining these two, we make a career choice. If we do that and then do whatever we do with full sincerity and dedication, we'll find that the life will become meaningful for us and also will lead to what young people would like to see, that is a better world. So, having a career is not incompatible with a meaningful life in which you make a difference. You make a difference to the world and contribute to a better world. In fact, the vision of a better world in the very near future is one of the uh, most important things that you find in Sri Aurobindo's teachings. And the basic thesis is that the world is a terrible place, no doubt, and it has been so for thousands of years. but it doesn't mean that it always has to be so. Because there is an evolutionary process going on in the world, and it is not just structural evolution, that is the monkeys turning into man, it is also evolution of consciousness, which means that this supreme consciousness, that is, which knows everything and can do everything, which is the consciousness of the divine, the higher force, which is in the world, behind the world, and beyond the world, that higher force is revealing only a small fraction of itself in all creation. In human beings, it probably reveals in this world more than in any other creature. But man is also only half animal and half divine, which means that there's scope for further improvement, which means further scope for manifesting more of the hidden divinity that we all have within us. And since the process of evolution is going on, man will give way to creatures which will reveal more of the divinity. And when that happens, human nature will change. But then we don't have to wait for the natural process to carry on further evolution the way it has been so far. Because human being is the first creature who has been given this urge, this aspiration to die better than we arrive at in this world. In other words, the human being has been given this urge to evolve. And not only this urge, but also the capacity to do so. And therefore, uh, if more and more human beings engage in this process, and more are likely to engage because the evolutionary process is on, and therefore more and more people will feel like engaging in this process of living a more meaningful life. As I said, young people are more and more looking for a career which combines a meaningful life. So if more and more people start turning in that direction, that time will come faster when the creatures which are manifesting more of their divinity than the present average human being, they will increase enormously in numbers. It's basically a question of numbers. People with the people manifesting much more of the divinity than the average person have always been there. Those are our saints and sages. They've always been there. But their number has been too small to change the very character of the world. The world still continues to be a place full of a lot of inequality, injustice, cruelty, misery, and suffering. So they have not been able to cure these basic ills. They have been able to give us some guidelines so that individuals can stay relatively comfortable, can be in relative peace in spite of all this in this world. But the character of the world itself has not changed. All religious leaders, spiritual leaders, and revolutionaries have come and gone, but none of them has been able to eradicate these basic problems of human existence. What will do that is a much larger number of human beings, or whatever you may like to call them, human beings or superhuman beings, whatever that creature will be, when their number is sufficiently large, that is what will change this character of this world. That will be the ultimate solution to all the problems of human existence. And because of the evolutionary thrust, more and more people are likely to give that type of direction to their life, which will lead to a better world. And when the tipping point comes, when their threshold is crossed, when their number is so big, so large, that they're able to dominate the affairs of the world will become a much better place to live in. And here it's where the relevance of the youth comes in, because after all, who will create that better world in the near future? It is those who are young today, and those who will arrive still after them. So they are the ones who are going to change this world. And that is the sort of vision that Sri Aurobindo and the mother had for the future of the world. Not only they had this vision, they have given a certitude that it will happen. Sooner or later, it's bound to happen as a process, as the result of the evolution, which is a natural process which has been going on so far. But it can be accelerated if more and more human beings participate in this process consciously. That is, they make deliberate choices, say career choices, etc., in life, which lead to a greater love in this world, more of love, which is expressed by more of giving. And in turn, by giving, you experience the joy of giving. So one lives, if more and more people start living a life in which, instead of the ego, it is the love that dominates our life, we will be heading towards a better world. And the children who are born different, with a higher at a higher level of consciousness, who are already pretty evolved and can evolve further during their life, they are the ones who are going to do it. And so Sri Aurobindo, in Savitri, it has a beautiful line that he can already visualize the arrival of a large, in large numbers, of children who are the sun-eyed children of a marvelous dawn. Sun-eyed children, their eyes, resemble the bright and shiny eyes, the sun-eyed children of a marvelous dawn. They are the ones who are going to usher in a better world, a better dawn. The present world may be considered a night, but then at the end of night comes the sunrise, the dawn. So they are the sun-eyed children of a marvelous dawn who are going to usher in a better world. And that is where the youth particularly comes in, because it is the youth amongst whom are those sun-eyed children of a marvelous dawn who will give a better world. And one can already see that process happening, because more and more young people are giving a new direction to their life. They do not want the existing order. They want a career which is not only something that they enjoy, not only something which gives them a sense of security, but they want also a career in which they can combine making a living with living a meaningful life, a life which will make a difference to the world. Here is a new book, Sri Aurobindo for the Young, which was published by the National Book Trust in the year 2022 as a part of the 150th birth anniversary celebrations of Sri Aurobindo. The book is rather slim. It has been written particularly for the young, rather slim, with just about just 86 pages. And since I wrote the book, if I say anything about it, it will not be appropriate. So let me just read out an endorsement by for this of this book by a person, David Marshak, who is the founding president of the Graduate Institute for Transformative Learning at Clinton in the US, and is the author of many books, including Evolutionary Parenting, where he talks about how the evidence for this evolution of the human being taking place can be already seen in terms of some parents consciously choosing to give their children a type of parenting that will lead to a new type of human being. And many of these children have also shown a great uh, inclination towards in this type of a life. So the parents and the children put together are able to come up with a human sort of species, a human samples, which are very different from the ordinary. And another book, The Common Vision, Parenting and Educating for Wholeness. And yet another book which has come up recently, which is on a large number, case histories of a large number of young people who are already showing inclinations of being different. And on this topic, he also gave a yes talk long ago, almost 2 years ago. That talk was again on the talk was titled Greta Thunberg is not the only one, something like that. Greta Thunberg, is that teenager who has been an activist in the field of environment and gone and spoken in the United Nations and so on, uh, at these or these conferences on the environmental issues, international forums on the environment. She has spoken at such places. So he says that she's not the only one. Of course, what she's doing is remarkable, but there are many teenagers scattered all over the world who have taken up some cause which is dear to them, and which they are pursuing with great passion. And the aim is to make a difference to the world. And they are doing it at a very young age, and some of them have achieved phenomenal success in doing so. So this person, David Marshak, what he says about this book, Sri Aurobindo for the Young, is that this book is an invitation to the reader to learn about the life and teachings of Sri Aurobindo through a highly engaging narrative. It is as if Dr. Bijlani is sitting with you, telling you this fascinating story that is both about the history of India and the spiritual evolution of humanity as midwifed by Sri Aurobindo and the mother. Sit down with this book and you will be entertained educated, and enhanced. So, this is the book, and it has been published by the National Book Trust India in the year 2022. Uh, and if you want to get a copy, either you can go to the bookshop of the National Book Trust, or you can visit Sri Aurobindo Ashram Delhi branch. We have a bookshop where this book is available. Or if neither of these things is easy for you, you can drop an email to us, and we can courier this book. Even if you need just one copy, we can courier it to any part of the world. We can organize that. Okay. So Sri Aurobindo for the young. Gratitude to Subhash Chandra, who is again a young person, a young artist, uh, who finished a few years ago his course in fine arts from the Delhi College of Art. He has drawn not just this picture, but a large number of pictures on the life of Sri Aurobindo, more than 100 pictures, and which have been used in a film on Sri Aurobindo, which is there on the YouTube channel of Sri Aurobindo Ashram Delhi branch. If you go there, you'll find a 49-minute film which has tried to condense to the extent possible the life and teachings of Sri Aurobindo. It's available on the YouTube channel of Sri Aurobindo Ashram Delhi branch. And the drawings, and we had to use a large number of drawings in that film because uh, photographs available were very few. So it depend that film uh, could be completed only with the help of drawings, and it was this young artist who sort of came to our rescue. The Yes platform, which was compelled by COVID and inspired by the 150th birth anniversary of Sri Aurobindo, has now evolved into an independent online learning platform, exclusively online learning platform. And it is under that this talk is also being given. These talks, Yes talks, are organized more or less every Saturday at 6 p.m. Indian Standard Time. And all the activities that we have had so far, including a very comprehensive course on teaching yoga, uh, all these activities have been uploaded on this YouTube channel. So all that has happened so far and all the talks that we are holding now are uploaded on this YouTube channel. The YouTube channel is Yes Spirituality. The same S serves for yes and also for spirituality. So if you just Google and search for this Yes Spirituality YouTube channel, you'll be taken straight there, and you'll find there more than 500 videos. If you have any comments or questions, please feel free to drop an email to yes@yesspirituality.com. And thank you all for being there.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. It's lovely to start the new year with your session. And we could, you make the things, present the things in so simple terms. It's so easy to understand all the aspects. Thank you so much for that. Audience, participants, if anyone wants to share something, if anyone has a question, please go ahead.
That
So I don't think anyone has any questions today. Thank you again for your valuable time, sir, and the wisdom that you shared with all of us. I thank the participants as well for being with us today. We'll close today's session with a moment of peaceful silence. Namaste.